Now, so far, we've focused mainly on the technological side of innovation. But what about the social perspective? Who are the innovations for? To what extent are we as consumers, users, and citizens adapting to new technology? Or could we even influence the way technology develops? Eva Heiskanen, she is professor in sustainable consumption at the Consumer Society Research Centre at the University of Helsinki in Finland. Most of her professional life, she has been interested in energy and environmental issues, and in particular linked to the consumer and the consumer's role in the energy transition. A key word for Eva's presentation here today is living labs, and I'm curious to hear how they can contribute to the transition. If, once again, you have any questions or comments to the presentation that we're going to hear, you could still ask questions through Slido, and the code is ET Innovation. And with that, I'm going to hand the word over to Eva Heiskanen.
Hello, I am Eva Heiskanen from the University of Helsinki, and I have been asked to speak to you about living labs, so thank you very much for the invitation. I will talk about the contribution of users to radical social and technical innovation. And I would like to start by going into the prehistory of living labs. So into the contribution of users to the creation of many important developments and industries that we see today. Passive house experimentation, local solar experimentation, and local wind power experimentation. So if we take as an example the passive house experimentation, since the 1970s, we have had architects, individuals building and trying to build passive houses for themselves, failing, making improvements, contributing to a line of development that has led by 2010 to the onset of the European Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, which requires that all new buildings in the EU should be nearly zero energy by 2020. Experimentation in real-life conditions has also been important for solar power development, especially activism and experimentation by citizens in Germany and California. Local wind power experimentation by citizens in Denmark, and these both have resulted in the huge industries that we see today. So users have a critical role at the early stages of technological development, and living labs are an attempt to simulate and accelerate this type of development of innovation under real-life conditions, often launched by cities, large and small companies in collaboration, with the aim to explore how users and technologies interact in real-life settings. And they do definitely provide valuable information about users and their needs for technology developers, as exhibited in this nice poster card by ENOL, the European Network of Living Labs, which says, "Don't assume what people want, find out what they need." And most living labs subscribe at least to a co-creation rhetoric, which allows users some opportunity to influence technological direction. But you might also argue that living labs can serve to reify and consolidate existing lifestyles and technological complexes, by which I mean the tendency to focus on one category of technical solutions, digitalization, automation, rather than others, or rather than challenging them radically. And as an example, I have a living lab that has now been running in Helsinki in a large high-rise building, which you can see in the slide, where they have been testing the use of a robot courier, which picks up ready meals and snacks in a supermarket, which is located within that same building, and delivers them to residents living higher up in that building. And you might say this is perhaps a little overkill. You might also question if this is the best way to deliver this service. I understand the need for home deliveries in these difficult times that we are living in, but could we find other simpler solutions to this problem? And this is what I mean by practice-based living labs that actually aim to challenge shared conventions and fixations with particular technologies. And the foundation for this is the questioning of right, normal, and convenient ways of doing things, which we usually take for granted, such as you must have Christmas lighting on your home. Very soon we must be putting it up. Your children must have lots of hobbies. And when you have visitors, you must offer them something nice. And very often, living labs tend to search for solutions to these problems, perhaps rather incrementally. So you might have experiments where you're searching for a sophisticated control algorithm to control the LED Christmas lights. You have 3D printers to make cupcakes. And I don't know if we have this yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we were to develop a robot courier that delivers the tiny ballerina to practice. But this is based on a notion that we have an expanding needs and expanding basic standards that everybody must then follow in their consumption patterns. And this is a bit problematic given that our planet is not expanding and we have planetary boundaries that set limits on how much we can consume. So as an alternative approach, I would like to show you Energize, a radical practice-based living lab that I was involved in through a European project, where we aimed to question and challenge existing practices of laundering and thermal comfort in households. And how we did this, we deliberated together with the participating households on why we do laundry, why we heat the way we do, and what could be alternative ways to do this. On this basis, our experiment didn't involve lots of complex gadgets, so we gave people thermometers. Surprisingly few households actually have even one indoor thermometer, woolen socks to keep warm, brushes, airing equipment, aprons to avoid the need for laundry. And we had 360 participants in a total of 8 countries. They were very engaged for a long period of time. We had 1 month of baseline data collection, 2 months for the households to experiment with alternative practices, and 3 months for a follow-up period to see if people actually kept up with these practices. The results, on average, households reduced their indoor temperatures by 1 degree Celsius, which can be roughly translated into 5% reduction in heating energy demand. They did 1 wash less per week, resulting also in less energy demand for drying clothing. But most importantly, participants saved time and they felt comfortable in their new indoor temperatures. So I would like to leave you with the question on the basis of this example. Could future living labs be even more radical? Thank you.
I'm very happy that you're back online and that we can both see you and hear you, because I would really like you to elaborate a little bit on your own question, whether living labs could be even more radical. And as I said before, I do suspect you to answer yes to that question, but how?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and I was thinking about this question also when I was listening to previous presentations. So I understand that it is a difficult thing to go outside one particular technology. People's expertise is built up in one technology, And also for investors, it is important to recognize what kind of a solution is being invested in. But still, I would argue that as society, we should try to solve these problems. One example, very recently here in Helsinki, we have been training dogs who sniff out people who have COVID-19, and they are very cheap, they are very reliable, and this is not something that many startups have been thinking about. And I understand that people's expertise is not maybe in training dogs or animal veterinary science, but what you might consider is who you collaborate with. Not only collaborating with people in your own field of expertise, especially in the living labs, but considering a bit more outside the box. Are there solutions in biology, in social innovation, etc., that could be more perhaps more to the point, that could be cheaper? Also, many people here probably read Clayton Christensen and the importance of considering the unserved customers, not the underserved, but the unserved customers. Okay. So could we serve some of the unserved customers in the world?
So what you're saying is that we shouldn't jump to any technological new solution just because it's technological, but it has to have a meaning, and we could also sometimes actually find the right solution within a not so technological sphere.
Yeah. Or a completely different technological sphere. So indeed, biosciences are another technical sphere, and they might also have some solutions. So that was my argument. So I'm not arguing that you should all offer people woolen socks, but rather to think various solutions. Yeah. Also because the competition is often coming from another field than your own.
There's an interesting question from the audience, Eva, that I would like to ask you. How do we define relevant needs? How can we create radical innovations that make us understand that we do not need all the things that we think we need?
Okay, that is a very good question. And of course, needs are culturally determined and they change over time. So if you would ask today if which are more important, pants or jewelry, then I'm sure everybody would say pants, but actually jewelry is a much older innovation than pants. So so in a sense, it is always culturally defined. But I think that indeed a living lab can be a good place to explore people's needs and what people consider to be fundamentally important about a certain solution and what could be perhaps like secondary aspects of that solution. So whether, for example, we need the same temperature in every room, or if we are happy with a warm and cozy living room and different temperatures in different rooms. This is an empirical issue. It is also something that varies from one culture to another and varies over history. But we can learn by working together with users.
Yeah. And with that, Eva, I think we're going to stop our one-on-one Q&A session here because we should enter the panel discussion now. So just stay on camera and with the sound, the microphone on. Thank you so far, because there are other questions for you popping up as well.